You've seen them, those super cinematic shots, the kinds that make you want to travel and create your own videos. But when you try to shoot something like that, it often ends up looking something like this.
Yeah, that looks bad. But it's a $6,500 camera, it shouldn't look bad. Huh. In this video I'm going to show you how to transform bad shots like this one into good shots like this one here. But we're not just talking about talking head shots, it also counts for landscape, it counts for wildlife, it counts for literally everything you shoot. And we're not doing that on a $6,500 camera, we're using an $800 one. By the way, I forgot something. I have a really nice bonus tip for you at the end of this video that I think no other YouTuber told you yet, at least not in that way. So definitely keep watching until there, because that tip can really enhance your talking head footage outside, especially during harsh sunlight hours like this one here. So now we're looking at a much better looking shot, and I'm shooting on the Fujifilm X-M5, which is only $800. For comparison, here's the Sony A9 Mark III, which is $6,500. As you can see, it's not a big difference. So you don't need an expensive camera for that, because all I did here to make it look better was to change the position of the camera in regards to the light. Like in the bad shot before, I had the sun shining straight into my face and the camera placed in between me and the sun. That always looks bad because the sun lights up my face completely equal and also the background, so there is not much contrast. You don't see alternating highlights and shadows, so the shot doesn't have much depth. And depth is always what you want to go for with your shots. You want alternating highlights and shadows because that generates depth in that 2D image that you see on the final display. And that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing that one side of my face is bright while the other one is dark, so we're having a shadow, and that instantly makes it look more three-dimensional. That's what we're going for. And now I'm talking about lighting here, but what it's actually about is position, because when we're outside we don't have much control over our lighting, but we have control over our position. So just by changing the position of your camera, you can make your shot look so much better. And let me give you a few more examples here. And that doesn't only count for people, it also counts for landscapes. Like you see here, we're having the bright side of that mountain and then here a shadow side. So I didn't bring my drone today, but if I would take a drone shot, it would look better if I would shoot from this perspective here, because we have side lighting there. Now if we look at something like that here, where the sun comes from the back and everything is equally lit, that looks pretty bad. So there we're getting a better image just by filming from the side. Or we backlight it like here, but it's also not perfect because the ocean is partly burned out. It's not really a great shot. So here I would clearly go for side lighting like so. So as you can see, even when you're shooting a landscape, just by changing the position of your camera, it can look so much better. And the techniques that we're using here are called side and back lighting. So what you see here on the camera, that's called side lighting because the sun hits me from the side. While what we're seeing here on the Sony is already a bit more like backlighting, because we're essentially shooting completely from the shadow side here while the sun is falling from that side. But it's also not perfect backlighting. Let me change the camera a little bit around. So this is essentially a backlit shot, and people usually tell you that that looks good, but here it doesn't right now because I have to overexpose so much that the sky burns out just to show my face. And that's a problem that you oftentimes get when shooting at sunrise or sunset, because the sun is so low that you have to burn out your sky. But when the sun is up, you can slightly position it so that it's like shining towards your back, and then you actually get a pretty good looking shot, because then you have the blue sky behind you. It all looks a bit better. Anyway, we can't get that now because it is sunrise, so here for backlighting we would have to change our shot a little. So now we're also looking at a backlit shot, but it looks much better as before, because now the sun is like 5 to 10 degrees behind me and the background is also a lot darker. So we're getting this nice backlight effect, which essentially generates a rim light around me here, what separates me a little bit from the background. And we're also having an ultimately darker background behind me, what looks better. And also for backlighting, I want to show you a few more shots here. You see those shots of the monkeys I took. A lot of them are backlit, which looks really nice because the sun nicely catches in the fur, which gives it a really nice rim light effect. And there it was a lot easier to capture because I could just move my camera really low to the ground, and that ultimately gave it a better background, so there's not a burnt out sky behind it. That's why these are really good examples for good looking backlit shots. But as you you can see here, for example, I also have some with side lighting, and they also look great. So it's the same with people, with landscapes, and with animals, and everything else essentially. Like even if you shoot objects like buildings or so, if you use side and backlighting, it usually looks better. And one tip more, I get all those shots in log, f-log2 on the Fujifilm X-M5 and s-log3 on the Sony camera, because those picture profiles give more dynamic range. So especially if you have backlit situations, also side lighting, then you can see more detail in the highlights and shadows at the same time, what makes the shots look better. It's also not much color grading. I made another video about that some time ago that I will link in the description. There I show you how to shoot a log, and it's beautiful that we can do that today with cameras as affordable as a Fujifilm X-M5, because when I started out about 20 years ago, all of that was not possible at all.
There was a time not too long ago when a kid dreaming of filming their hobbies could only dream. Cameras needed film rolls, so every second of footage burned through your wallet. But things changed. Cameras got smaller and cheaper, so that same kid could finally capture every failed kickflip. Sure, the footage wasn't the best, and getting it from tape to a computer, a nightmare. So phones turned into camcorders, DSLRs into little cinema cameras, and all of a sudden, filmmaking wasn't just for professionals anymore. It was in everyone's pocket. And now, we've taken it one step further. Type a few words, let AI do the rest, and boom, your video's done. No sunburns, no bad takes, just endless videos without ever leaving your chair. Sounds fun, right? No? Then don't forget. These are just tools to enhance your videos, but don't replace the process.
Speaking of tools, that whole little animation you just saw was all generated with Artlist's new AI video generator, which is also the sponsor of today's video. Here's how it works. You start by choosing one of the many styles your video should have from Artlist's carefully curated collection, which also includes some photorealistic and actually pretty cinematic ones. You will definitely find something that fits your imagination. Then you come up with a simple idea and describe it. Your description might not be detailed enough though, which is why Artlist helps you to avoid burning through credits. You just click the Enhance button to refine it, and of course you can still change it up if needed. From there, just click Generate and it creates a first image based on your prompt. If it's not exactly what you were hoping for, no problem. You can tweak your prompt, adjust the setting and regenerate until you get the perfect shot. After you got the image you're looking for, select it for animation, choose the time and resolution of the clip, and either use the suggested prompt from Artlist, change it up or create your own. Click Animate and your image is being turned into a video clip. So it's super easy, everyone can use it, and honestly just a few months ago I would have never even thought that I could make such a sequence, and now that's possible in a pretty short amount of time and without even having to learn a new app or so. And by the way, even the voiceover was made with Artlist's AI voiceover generator, which is also included in the subscription, so you can actually make short films only using the subscription, or if that's not what you want, it's also ideal for when traveling to a location isn't an option, your budget doesn't stretch that far, you're short on time, or you just want a different style for part of your video. What makes it even better is that Artlist constantly updates the generator with the latest models and styles to give you the best videos, and you don't have to go through the legal small print to see if you can use clips in your videos, because it's all covered by Artlist's license to use in all your video projects. And even that's not all, Artlist also features a massive library of music, sound effects, stock footage, plugins, and even LUTs, which is huge if you want to spice up your videos. Artlist stock footage is actually my favorite because most of it is available in RAW and log codecs, what makes it easy to color match to my own shots, especially when I color grade in HDR. And because of all that, Artlist has become the must-have subscription for video creators and editors in my opinion, because this one subscription has pretty much all you need in one place.
And of course, you don't have to go with the max plan if you don't need all the features and want to save some money. Artlist has quite a few plans available, so you can choose whatever fits best. And if you need more in the future, you can upgrade at any time.
So thanks again to Artlist for sponsoring this video. It's truly an amazing platform, and I've created videos using their tools that I think I couldn't have done without it. So definitely check them out. Link is in the description. And as you can tell, our angle has changed a bit because that's what I want to talk about next, positioning and framing. Now what you can see right now, what I did was to film from the top, so I appear pretty small. It's usually not what you want. Now here it doesn't look particularly bad because it looks pretty intentional how I did it, but oftentimes when you're vlogging, for example, and you just hold the camera slightly above your head, or you're walking around and film something that's smaller than you, then you film down, and that usually looks bad. And here, for example, it makes me look small, what could be good for storytelling if I want to make something appear smaller than it is, which I usually don't have to do with myself because I'm only 1.68 m. I'm already small enough, and I don't want to emphasize that in my videos. Anyway, back to topic. What I wanted to tell you was that usually it's better to be level with your camera, with the subject, or below it, because that makes the subject look bigger. So let's do that now. So now we're about eye level, and as you can tell, it looks a lot more normal, like as if you would talk to another person. So that's generally what you want to have. That's, for example, if you're vlogging, you don't want to hold the camera too high, you want to hold it around eye level. So you should generally get used to going a bit lower with your camera, because that generally looks better. But even angles where you're above yourself, like we did before in an extreme way, can look pretty good. So that's, in my opinion, the most important rule when you're starting out when it comes to composition. Just keep the camera either level to your subject or slightly below it, because most of the time it looks better. And also from a visual storytelling perspective, that's most of the time what you want, because you don't want to make your subject look small. And if you only stick to those two rules, at first that composition rule I just talked about, and also the light, like either using backlighting, what I'm essentially doing right now, or side lighting, you also get much better looking footage. But of course there's more to it when it comes to composition. Especially what you're seeing right now is that I'm using a foreground object here, that stone, and that gives the shot also more depth. So depth can come from light, and definitely does. That's the most important factor, but it can also come from composition, simply by being aware of your foreground, your midground, and the background. So foreground here is the stone again, midground is me, and the background is here the sky and the skyline behind me. And just by being aware of those things, you can also give your shots more depth. And usually this simply comes down to putting something in the foreground, like that stone here, because your main subject, which essentially becomes the midground, like a person, an animal, a temple, or whatever it is usually clear already, because that's what you want to get the shot of. The background also pretty much happens automatically because it's just there, but you have to remind yourself of putting something in the foreground. Of course, you don't always have to do that. There are lots of great shots that don't use foreground objects and still look great, but oftentimes just by adding this third element, you make your shot a bit better. So be aware of that. Just look for objects that you can put in the foreground. Usually it's plants standing around somewhere, also stones, whatever you find. It can really be anything. Sometimes even if you have multiple people, you focus on one person, some in the middle or in the background, while having some people blurred out in the foreground. That can also already do it. Now, before we come to the bonus tip, I have another one for you here, which is gear related, but that doesn't mean that it has to be expensive, which is that you should invest in faster lenses, especially prime lenses that have an aperture of maximum f2.8 or lower on full frame, and ideally on APS-C maximum f1.8, because that gives you this nice background blur effect. And to be fair, it's a relatively cheap way, many filmmakers would say, to make your shots look better, but for social media it totally works, because we all love background blur, and that's also what separates footage oftentimes from phones, because there you definitely get less background blur as you would get under the same conditions with a proper full frame or APS-C camera. So definitely invest in faster lenses. Here, for example, for that Fujifilm, if you're looking for something affordable, what I can recommend is the Viltrox 27mm f1.2 here. That gives you a lot of background blur. It's actually a very similar image that you would get out of this lens as you're seeing right now, because now I'm using a 35mm f1.4 on my Sony camera here, so very similar overall. That makes your footage look a lot better. And there's also recently, for example, I made a video about the 50mm f2 from Viltrox for full frame cameras, and that is also a lens that gives you a lot of blur and makes your videos therefore look a lot better. Again, that is not necessarily the best advice. It doesn't replace good lighting and good composition and stuff, but well, if your background is completely blurred out, for example, you don't really have to look for anymore what's in your background or how you frame it, so it makes everything a little bit easier and still looks good. Just don't forget to also train all the other techniques that we discussed here. And there's one more. You probably recognize that this shot here, for example, looks relatively soft and nice, and also most of the others that you've seen here, and that is because I pretty much always use a so-called mist filter in front of my lens. Those filters essentially add a little bit of glow to the highlights of your image and therefore soften the image a little bit. That makes it look less digital, a bit more organic, and there are lots of affordable mist filters out there as well, so you don't have to spend much money on that to get a better looking image as well. But let's come to the bonus tip now. And let's come to the little bonus tip here. Now, as you can see, the sun is quite harsh right now. That's a problem that you oftentimes have just after sunrise and sunset, because the sun is pretty low and just shines right in your face. And you can see that right now, really harsh light here and a relatively dark shadow here. So I want to reduce that, and we can reduce that by using a diffuser. So let me show you how to do it. So here's how to do it. You just bring one of those diffusers. They mustn't be expensive at all. This one here was about $10. Then you use a selfie stick here with a little small tripod at the bottom, because you don't want to carry much, right? I mean, if you travel with a car, you can also bring a proper one, a big one. But I travel with a motorbike. That's not really suitable for me. Using a little clamp here to lock that in. Okay, cool. Now I can put that here in between me and the sun. I will sit later. Of course, it would fall over, so use your back just next to it. Okay, here the ground is not level, and I also have to block it from the other side, so here I use my back now and the tripod. And now we're getting pretty soft light. So this is how it looks with the diffuser. As you can see, the shadows are a bit brighter now because I was also able to raise the exposure slightly in camera, and the bright side of my face got a bit softer, looks a bit nicer as well, more like in a studio. And as you can see, this is really easy to set up. It's also a bit nicer to film like that, because otherwise the sun would get quite hot in my face, and then you always try to hurry up. You always also start speaking faster and stuff. So it also helps a little bit for that. Maybe you even avoid a sunburn. And these are essentially techniques that they use on professional film sets, Hollywood and stuff. Maybe you've seen that there, where they have these huge diffusers, and I saw that all the time, that they do it like that. So I was thinking, how can I implement those techniques into my videos? So this is what I came up with, because I travel with a motorbike, not a car, so I can't even bring a proper stand for a diffuser. But this setup here with a little tripod base together with a selfie stick works quite well. Not when it's windy, then I can't do that at all, but for situations like here where it's relatively wind still, that's a great solution. So try it out yourself. It's not expensive, and that definitely makes your videos look a bit different from other outdoor videos on YouTube, at least if you shoot a lot of A-roll outside or B-roll shots where you have a bit more time to set everything up. So as you can see, getting professional looking footage isn't actually that complicated. You basically just have to be aware of the position of your camera in relation to the main light source and yourself, both when it comes to lighting and composition, and your shots instantly look a lot better. Of course, you can also add better lenses, diffusion filters, or even a diffuser, as I showed you before, but these are extras on top. The main things, lighting especially, does not change, and if you don't nail that in the first place, it will always look bad. But also, what I want to mention here is that it's not always just about getting the best looking shots. The big reasons why people watch your videos is information and or story. So even if some of your shots look bad, as long as the story is good or you have good information to bring out to people, that's all fine. You will get away with that. I think that's important to mention, because if you're only running around looking for cinematic shots, you tend to forget about the story and information, and that's not what you should do. So get professional looking shots wherever it's possible with a reasonable amount of effort, and if it's just not possible occasionally, it's perfectly fine. Just capture whatever you can. But of course, there's a lot more to learn if you want to make your videos look better. Check out these 2 videos for that. And I also have a really nice online academy with lots of online courses where you learn a lot of stuff, and you also get direct help there via question and answer sessions, and also a really nice community. So check that out as well. I will leave a link to it in the description below, and I see you in upcoming videos. Peace.